Right. Welcome everyone to another episode of the Week in Italian Startup Summer Edition. We are approaching the ending of the season and the big block of Italian ecosystem, I would say. Well, block is relative, but we often see like a little bit of slowdown around August. But July is feeling absolutely strong. Nick, last week was definitely a banger. What's your take on that?
Yeah, my take is that I need to go to on vacation. When I am on vacation, then everybody announces rounds, so it's great. I should, I should go more on
Sure.
vacation. What do you say?
Yeah,
I
just
think it would be
for the
great.
sake of the ecosystem, just for the sake of the ecosystem,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
go to the beach.
Uh, If we get enough likes to this video, I will go on permanent vacation. At this point,
Awesome.
so
Please, guys, please like
it's gonna be
for the
bad.
sake of Nick's holiday position and mental wellness. So yeah, awesome. All right, let's kick this off talking about cybersecurity. So, Exein, cybersecurity startup, raising 17 million in a Series C round from Balderton, Supernova, Lakestar 33N, United Venture, and Partech. So, very interesting for a couple of reasons. What I wanted to do maybe is first like take a little step back in the talking about the cybersecurity part of the deal. So this is something that we see in the ecosystem, but it's kind of on a very stealth note. Sometimes it's not. It doesn't do a lot of press. But it's a very, very strong sector. So, in general, we were checking a little bit some of the data and to have like I would say like a good sense of the health and the potential of a vertical. What I usually do is to take like two data point as proxy, which is the amount of unicorn created into a certain time frame, and then the enterprise value over ARR, so like the valuation of the company and the multiples and how it behaves. So very interesting findings talking about half of 2025, so since the beginning of the year, cybersecurity company globally are at the third place of unicorn creation. So AI being number one, fintech being number two, and then cybersecurity being number three. So very profitable and lucrative, and definitely vertical with a high velocity, creating a lot of unicorns. And at the same time, in terms of multiples, what is interesting is that does not have the multiples of an AI company, which I think at some point they hit like the 20 time revenue or something crazy like that for certain deals. Cybersecurity is stable between 6 and 12x multiples. So enterprise value over annual recurring revenue. Very solid, very interesting. These, I think, are two strong signal on how exactly this sector is evolving and moving, among the other signal, because there is really a lot of signals there. What's your first impression, Nick, on this?
That's amazing because, as you said, you didn't hear about cybersecurity as a vertical quite a lot. Not as much as AI. Maybe it's less fashionable and fascinating in terms of content, but it is very important in terms of the time we're living in, and probably among the operators, the cybersecurity environment at large is receiving a lot of interest for its implications also outside of the traditional enterprise business applications, and starting to touch upon defense tech and geopolitical interests. And this probably is one of the reasons why this is such an hot market at this time.
Yeah, I mean, on top of that, I would mention two additional elements, which is, of course, the massive AI adoption calls for a massive adoption in security measure to actually manage how exactly AI is handled. And we will see in Exein how exactly they do in a very specific way, and which is very interesting. But yeah, that's definitely like another signal. The other big element is the government regulatory framework and how the compliance is shifting. So a lot of new bills have been approved, both in Europe and the US, where actually there are like much more stringent requirement for companies in terms of cybersecurity. And Exein is really in the middle of all of these, like a perfect wave, I would say.
Mhm.
So yeah, talking a little bit about the company, maybe let's start there. So the idea of Exein is really to work on advanced security on device in embedded systems. So once basically cybersecurity passed through all cloud and cloud application, Exein took kind of the different approach and working really on IoT devices on device. And they built what they define as a digital immune system, which essentially is a tool that allows to not only catch and monitor potential attacks, but also adapt, pattern recognize, and then evolve just to guarantee that there is the maximum security on device specifically. So just to explain it on for a wider audience in simple terms. But very interesting, intuitively, it's a very interesting ideas. It kind of plays the decentralized card. So essentially, trying to work on microsecurity framework on different device instead of a big sort of overarching element that allows that protects the system. It's really playing the cards of working on device. And I think the embedded wave is also something to consider and something that is strongly moving for sure. So very, very interesting.
Yeah, you know what I also like, and this is becoming a trend. They are implementing an open source strategy for all of this. So the core technology is actually open source and available on GitHub. We've got a bit of love. I think also almost 1,000 stars for their main product, and that's super interesting since in particular in cyber, the open source angle is very well received by, of course, customers and the community. Um, it's probably an important angle to take in developing the product.
100%.
Mm.
Talking about the growth of the company, also that's pretty impressive. If we talk about how exactly the company has been growing, so they register a 450% year-over-year growth. So that you don't see that very often, honestly. So that's another very impressive element. So definitely congratulations to the team for the raise, and but more than that, congratulations for the massive growth that they're reaching. So that's very, very interesting.
Yeah, crazy.
All right. What I wanted to mention also is one last element, which I thought it was of interest, is that the at the beginning, Exein was working with corporations, but they're really transitioning to infrastructure in general, like wealth, like railways and healthcare in general. And that's also going to help them boost definitely the growth and the strategy. And that's probably why the fundraise is such massive compared to the average like fundraise in Italy. So very, very much again, they seem to be like in the middle of a perfect wave and perfectly positioned with the perfect surfboard, the right balance, the right skills to kind of ride this massive element. Yeah.
Wow. I was also looking at the Crunchbase about the history, the founding history of the company. And what's interesting is, the time. They raised the first seed round in 2018, so seven years ago. And then they went heads heads down building. They raised the Series A in 2021, sort of three years in. Uh, and let's say something about um, the time you need and it can take you to actually build the product and start developing your go-to-market strategy. So Series A, 3 years. And then things started moving. The Series B came in 2024, another 3 years. It was last year, 1 year ago. They raised 15 million, and now exactly 1 year later, they raised 70 million. So that's a momentum here that you can see building up, and that's almost textbook example of growth. Super interesting.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, definitely worth diving into the deal and see exactly how they're going to move and how they've been doing that. Very, very interesting. All right, moving on. Another Pretty massive round. This last week was Tulum Energy, clean tech startup raising 27 million in a seed round from CDP Venture Capital, TDK Ventures, Metotech Ventures, and Doral Energy Tech Ventures. So, two elements of interest, I would say. First of all, the kind of technology. So, essentially, they're working in the clean tech space, and in particular, into the basically production of green hydrogen through methane pyrolysis. So production of hydrogen has been like very not exactly like managed in the proper green way. I would say that definitely was something that that it's difficult. What Tulum is doing, and I think it's particular is of particular interesting, is to actually repurpose old furnaces from different like industrial complexes, tweak their technology, and be able to manufacture what is called turquoise hydrogen, which is different from blue or green hydrogen. So basically, what they're trying to do is to lower as much as possible the emission of CO2 as they produce hydrogen. And this kind of technology, through the repurposing of furnaces and the methane pyrolysis, really achieved that result. So, very innovative, very interesting in terms of technology. This technology, also another interesting point, is that was developed from a research standpoint, and then there was actually a corporate venture capital arm of one of the big petrol company, Tech Petrol, in the world, kind of pushing the foundation and then the first step of this company. So it's really a great example of corporate venture building overall, which is noticeable and definitely it's a success case. It's a big round and definitely that has like a very interesting implication from like a sustainable standpoint. So definitely interesting one to see.
Super interesting. I didn't know it was coming out from a venture builder.
Yeah, so
Super interesting.
it's called Tech Energy Venture, which is the corporate arm of Tech Petrol. Yeah. So yeah, CVC is especially in like a massive corporation with a lot of like sort of interest into the next step of green technology comes from like some these massive oil and gas corporation that are like kind of reframing their businesses and having very core innovation overthrown by new technology coming in. So definitely like a pattern that you see in these kind of companies. Usually their structure is a fund. Like there are a lot of examples where these corporations really have like a very a traditional fund structure. So they allocate capital, they invest financially, they behave like a fund. Some other, which is rarer, is way rarer than before, is actually like the venture building part, which of course is it needs to manage different, it's closest to R&D. It involves efforts regarding the infrastructure and the operations. But yeah, this is a very successful example, and sometimes it works really well. So very interesting deal for sure.
Super.
All right. Now, talking about investors, let's talk about how Angelini Ventures is actually one of the core investor of Nuclidium, raising 79 million in a Series B. Basically, joining other investors such as Karma Growth Opportunity Fund, Wellington Partners, Neva SGR, Eurazeo, and other investors. So we're shifting a little bit the vertical here. We're talking about what is defined as theranostics. So in biotech and healthcare, essentially this is like we're talking about precision oncology here. They've been developing like essentially an approach to therapy that combines, for of course, diagnostic and treatment through the use of different isotope of copper. So in this way, they can really precisely find and treat tumoral cells. So massive deal, I would say. Great, it's great that Italian investors are always in the outlook of some of the best technology there. And yeah, massive round, I would say, for Europe for sure.
Yeah, it is a Switzerland-based company, and among the investors in the list, I also see Neva SGR. So we have another Italian player joining the round.
Yeah,
Among the others, there are quite a
among the others.
long list.
Awesome. And let's talk about welfare now. So welfare has been interesting in Italy because it's a big deal for Italian companies. It's always been, and because of this kind of sensitivity, a lot of digital entrepreneurs are working in that space. So a lot of digital solution for welfare on different levels. Interestingly, last week we've seen like a round, and that's for Toduba welfare startup raising 3.5 million in a growth round from P101 CDP Venture Capital SGR. So interesting as well. Definitely like position in a growing sector that is specifically well. I don't know if it's ingrained in Italy, but it's definitely stronger and strongly moving in Italy. So that's my take on this. What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, it's a hot market with several players coming in since there is a lot of opportunities in there. Due also to legislation and to financial benefits to employers that offer welfare programs to their employees. So it's a broad market with a lot of leverage to a lot of levers to pull and push. And there are a lot of incumbents, but stuck to offerings that date from decades ago. So we are seeing quite a few startups that are trying to propose different ways to offer welfare services to employees and people. So big hot market, interesting one.
Awesome. All right, so these are the highlights for last week. Nick, do you want to say a few words on where we are in terms of your tracker? So for those who don't know, Nicolo has been following essentially all the fundraise happening in Italy with very strict requirements. So it's one of the probably most precise, I can say that, way to track the rounds. So where are we now?
Well, we are very close to matching 2024 in terms of funds raised, and we still have almost 2 weeks to go in July, so 10 days to go in July. So if we have a good season finale, as they say, we could overcome 2024 and have you know start seeing a very interesting year in terms of funds raised by Italian startups. And so far, July has already been the best month of the year in terms of capital raised by startups. So let's see whether there is a trend here and things are accelerating, or it's a one-off for this year. I'm, of course, positive. But August will be, of course, quite a difficult month as usual. So we have 4 more months: September, October, November, and December, and see how it
Yeah,
goes.
awesome. All right. Nick, thank you so much for joining, and see you next week then.
Ciao, Jack. Thank you so much. Ciao, everybody. See you in a week.